Hey, welcome investors to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. Today I'm going to do a quick tour of Yahoo Finance Premium. I am a Yahoo Finance Premium member, have been over the past year or so. So I'm going to show you some of the features that I like about this particular subscription, and hopefully it helps you in making your own decision about whether or not to sign up. And of course, if you like stock market analysis and reviews like this, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, helps me out quite a bit. Thank you to everyone for your support. Now, the first thing to know about Yahoo Finance before we jump in, this is a paid subscription. It's $35 a month, I think $34.99 officially. You can usually find like a couple deals online. I did a quick check and the only specials I saw running right now were 10% off your first couple months. But there's also the option to pay annually for $350, which basically gives you 2 months for free. All right, so this is the homepage of Yahoo. This is the premium dashboard. And with the premium dashboard, to be honest, I don't come here a whole heck of a lot. I'll show you the features that I use the most. But some of these investment ideas can be cool, like this Disney one here. They take snippets from an analyst report that we'll be able to view here in just a little bit. But it just goes on to show you that the long-term price target for Disney over the next 12 months is $225. The current price is $192. So it's sort of like an automated view at analyst price targets against popular stocks. Then you have these items down here, which depending which stocks you have in your watch list or your portfolio, you get the Peter Lynch valuation of stocks. In my opinion, almost everything is overvalued. That could be a sentiment of the market right now, which is running hot. But I don't, I eyeball the fair value, but I think the way stocks are going nowadays, at least in 2020 and into 2021, you have a ton of momentum factors, you have interest rate factors. So at this period in time, I'm not sure the Peter Lynch fair value is going to come into play, at least in my investing decisions, over the next few months. Next, you have significant developments. These are just key news items. So DraftKings, it's kind of neat how they break it out into a calendar, but they just grab what they think are the key headlines from DraftKings, and they just share a little bit of a synopsis about it. This is the kind of stuff I read more often than not on the actual stock page. So we'll go there in just a second. Same thing goes for these research reports, which I find incredibly helpful, but I access most of them from the stock pages. You can go to the research reports tab, and all of these are written by either Argus or Morningstar, and I find them to be of great detail. So this Palantir that comes in, you actually can download the full report. And with these, you have a full analysis. And in the stocks I follow, I read almost every single one of these, where you get the analyst notes, you get Argus or Morningstar's view on the fair value estimate, which is traditionally a little bit more flexible than the Peter Lynch one, if you will. You also get a take on their moat, how the trend is going, uncertainty, just a great eyeball evaluation. And each one of these reports goes pretty deep, right? So we're on page 3 out of 20 right now. But let's say, for example, you didn't know a whole lot about Palantir, and you just wanted to sit down for a second and read about where the company sits today. And where it could potentially go in the future, and the headwinds and the moats and all that. I think that Morningstar and Argus do a really good job on these reports. While they're going to be very conservative, I think, on their fair value estimates, and they're not going to take into account momentum as much as probably the stock market plays into today, I do think that they do a great job of breaking up the bull and bear case for each stock. All right, before we jump into individual stocks, I do want to show you some of the features If you put your portfolio into Yahoo, now I do it manually. There is a way to link your broker. I have not used this officially, but there is a way to just click on your broker and import it. I'm a little weird about some of that stuff, importing over directly and passwords and everything. So, I type mine in by hand, and I just make sure that my average cost per share mimics what I have in my Ally account. But regardless of how you get the information in there, the performance tab is, I think, super cool because it allows you to compare your portfolio against all kinds of different metrics. So this chart is year to date, my portfolio against the S&P 500. And for me, I usually come in here and put in the QQQ because it's one of my favorite ETFs. QQQ in purple. And it looks like so far this year I'm doing better than the QQQ, but here we are in March and there is still plenty of time for things to go right or wrong. And scrolling down past the charts, you get sort of that list view of where things stand, and you can sort by unrealized return, things like that. So anyway, just a couple of cool ways to look at your portfolio. Characteristics gives you the price to earnings versus the SPY, price to cash flow. So some intriguing things to see. I'm not exactly sure how they stack all this stuff up, if it's based on an average or if it's actually like the net total based on the shares that you have. But either way, it's a good eyeball analysis. All right, going to an individual stock page. I just picked Starbucks today. This is not a stock I own, but it will serve us well to get an idea for how this stuff is laid out in Yahoo Finance Premium. And right off the bat, you have a premium tab for company outlook. This I consider another like eyeball assessment of a stock, but I do tend to peek at this innovation factor, which is sort of interesting. It kind of takes a broad assessment of how your company is doing across R&D activities. You have patents, maintenance events, trademark applications, registration, research grants. A lot of kind of interesting stuff in here. And you can see that Starbucks happens to perform well in this innovation score against their sector average. And they've got a couple of letter grades for coverage, momentum, potential, influence. I don't know really what you do with this in the short term, but I would say from a long-term perspective, you certainly want to have a company that has a good innovation score compared to their sector, at least trending right next to it. And if for some reason you saw a huge fall off, let's just pretend that Starbucks came in at a 29 or something, then perhaps you're digging in a little deeper and saying, hey, is Starbucks prepared for the future? Is this a long-term investment? That kind of thing. You could look into it in more detail. Other things to note on this Outlook tab, you have the hiring portion. You have the insider sentiment, which is, based on insider selling or buying. You've got a nice little earnings graph here that sums up, whether you're beating earnings or not. Sustainability could be important for some people. Significant developments. This is the same thing we looked at with DraftKings. All right, so back at the stock page for Starbucks, and this is the place where you'll find the Starbucks research automatically sorted by the freshest picks that have come in. And just by clicking on that link down there, you have a Morningstar report from March 12th. So that's just a few days ago. And again, you can either read these summaries that they've put on here, analyst note, economic moat. So they've done some of it for you, or you can go ahead and download the PDF, bring it up on your screen to do the full report. And a company like Starbucks, we showed you the Palantir one earlier. Starbucks has a much longer history. So these reports can get very detailed in a good way because, what is Starbucks doing today compared to, let's say, 2016? and is the moat growing, all those things. You're going to get that information buried in these paragraphs. And you also have this competitor graph, which I think is sort of interesting, where you're stacking up. I don't know why Best Buy's in here, but let's just say Starbucks and McDonald's. That could be a good investment comparison to see, hey, what is the best deal out of these two when you get into the fundamentals? Back on the Starbucks page, just to close off, this related research, I got to tell you, is a really important part of the things that I look at. Just because, hey, Morningstar and Argus, they may not be the greatest stock pickers of all time. However, they have a vested interest in providing good research, and I think they do a really good job of being impartial, right, and saying the good and bad things, and that type of opinion is very hard to find these days. All right, the next big feature for individual stocks, in my opinion, and this, you guys, if you watch my channel, I use this all the time, is basically the historical valuation metrics that if you're a premium member, go back, as long as you care to look at. So if we're on Starbucks and we click the annual tab, this is a premium feature. Annual by itself is premium. Quarterly, I believe you get like the last 3 or 4 quarters for free. So your information would stop like right about here. And all these other quarters are part of the premium subscription. So this annual look is super helpful when you want to ask yourself the question like, hey, Starbucks today at 109, how does that price stack up historically? And you can look back and you can see that, today at 188, I'll be honest with you, some of these current tabs get kind of mucked up and they don't always have the right EPS information. But let's just go back to September of 2020. You had a trailing PE of 76. You can look back to 19, 18, 17, 16. It doesn't take long to figure out that the valuation multiple that you're paying for Starbucks in September was, much, much higher than you would have seen historically. So we know that we have low interest rates and things of that nature. So maybe you put a premium, you take 2017 or whatever year you're comfortable with, and you add a premium to account for low interest rates. But at the end of the day, no one walks away looking at this chart and says, okay, Starbucks is a good deal right now. And this stuff can really help you model your future expectations. So obviously the next view on forward PE, which is arguably the most important, back in September at 31, well, that's not as far off as the trailing PE was. And we know that with COVID, there's a lot of things that will be changing in the very near future. So you might say to yourself, okay, this 31 valuation is a little high. Let me model it out and see what would the price be at a 28 forward PE or a 25, something like that, and at least you know your range. This historic view also includes PEG ratio, price to sales, price to book, enterprise value and revenue, and enterprise versus EBITDA. So there's a lot of good stuff in here just on this valuation measures, and you can download it so that you can sort through it in different applications. All right, so to summarize with Yahoo Premium, the 3 things that I use the most is the portfolio with multiple portfolios and the ability to track my portfolio performance against other metrics such as the QQQ. So that's number 1. Number 2, as you know, I'm using those research reports, particularly those that are tied into stocks I'm watching or owning. I read those all the time, so that's my personal preference. I think that that is a key feature. And then finally, you have the statistics tab, which allows you to look back on PE ratios, PEG ratios, enterprise value, price to sales, multiple years, multiple quarters in the past, so that you can see how the stock is trending today from a valuation perspective compared to other quarters and years in the past. So those are the 3 or 4 things that, in my personal opinion, bring the most value from Yahoo Finance Premium. Now, keep in mind, for someone like me, I'm running the stock market channel. It's very easy for me to get to the historical metrics by being a premium member. I also don't have to deal with all the annoying ads and stuff like that. So for me, it makes sense at $35 a month. Very soon, I will probably just buy the annual to save a couple months on it. But if you only have 4 or 5 stocks to your name, I'm not sure that you're going to get all the value out of it. I think ideally you're going to want to be into 10 stocks plus. You're going to be the kind of person who is using premium at least 2 or 3 times a week, some feature on there. So that's just my take. If you get high enough up in your investing, if you itemize your tax returns, there's a better than not chance you could write off at least a portion of your Yahoo Premium subscription, but talk to your accountant about that one. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this look behind the scenes in Yahoo Premium. If you did, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next video.